Welcome to Hockey Wiz Talks podcast. In this podcast, I'll be taking an in-depth look at the Atlantic Division teams. In this podcast, I take an in-depth look at the Atlantic Division teams in the NHL and what their expectations are heading into the season. The 2025-26 Boston Bruins are entering a season of recalibration. After a turbulent 24-25 campaign that saw them miss the playoffs for the first time since 2016, the Bruins are trying to thread the needle between staying competitive and ushering in a new era. Marco Sturm takes over as the new head coach. Sturm, a former Boston Bruin himself, brings a player-first approach and aims to reestablish the team's heartbeat and defensive identity. Under new head coach Marco Sturm, the Bees hope to emphasize a return to being hard to play against. Expect a grind-heavy physical style with defensive accountability. The Bees are still heavily reliant on David Pastrnak and Morgan Geekie. They have to hope that Elias Lindholm and Pavel Zacha have bounce-back years. Scoring depth remains a concern, especially with Marchand gone. Jeremy Swayman missed last year's preseason due to contract disputes. His form will be pivotal for the Bruins because when on top of his game, he is one of the league's best. Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm's health will be one of the most important factors for the Bruins' success this season. They both missed large chunks of last season. If they are to miss large chunks of the season like last year, it will be a long year. The Bruins traded away Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle, Brandon Carlo, and Trent Frederick at the 2025 deadline. These moves signaled a pivot from veteran-heavy leadership to a more youth-driven core. Rather than a full rebuild, GM Don Sweeney signed experienced players like Tanner Jeannot, Victor Arvidsson, Sean Kuraly, and Mikey Isamont to bolster their depth. Emerging talent to watch include Matthew Poitras, who's slated to be the third-line center, Mason Lohrei, a potential top-four defenseman, Fabian Lysell, a former first-round pick of the Bees, and Fraser Minton, acquired in the Brandon Carlo trade. The development of these four players will determine the success of the Bees this season. The Bruins are walking a tightrope. If young players like Poitras, Lohrei, and Minton step up and veterans stay healthy, they could sneak into the playoffs. However, if chemistry falters and injury persists, they may find themselves in the lottery conversation again. Either way, this season is less about banners and more about blueprint. It's a transitional year where Boston's next chapter begins. Questions for the 25-26 season. 1. Will the fire sale continue? Boston already traded away longtime veterans such as Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle, Brandon Carlo, and Trent Frederick last season, but the rumor mill hasn't cooled. Pavel Zacha, Casey Middlestat, and Jonas Korpisalo are all reportedly on the bubble. If the Bruins stumble early, expect more veteran pieces to be moved. 2. Can Hampus Lindholm have a bounce-back year? After missing most of last season with a fractured kneecap, Lindholm is back and fully healthy. His absence left a gaping hole in Boston's defensive structure. 3. Can Jeremy Swayman reclaim his number one status? Swayman struggled in his first full season as a starter, compounded by a preseason contract dispute. He'll need to bounce back quickly, or Boston may explore alternatives. His performance could determine whether the Bruins are playoff hopefuls or lottery bound. 4. How will the Bruins look under Marco Sturm? Sturm inherits a fractured locker room and a fan base unsure of the team's direction. Will he lean into youth and speed or double down on grit and structure? His ability to craft a new team ethos will be under the microscope. My prediction is that the Boston Bruins finish 7th in the Atlantic Division. The 2025-26 Buffalo Sabres are at a crossroads where patience meets pressure and promise must finally yield results. After 14 straight years without playoff hockey, the Sabres are no longer a rebuilding team. They're a team on the brink of either breakthrough or implosion. Buffalo holds the longest active playoff drought in North American pro sports. They've overhauled their front office, with GM Kevin Adams bringing in Eric Stahl as the assistant to GM and Jarmo Kekalainen as the senior advisor to inject winning pedigree and strategic depth. Lindy Ruff returns as head coach with a defensive-first with a defense-first mindset aiming to balance youthful energy with structural discipline. The Sabres ranked 10th in goals per game last season, but lost JJ Peterka and did not replace his goal production. Their power play ranked 24th in the NHL last season and is still a glaring weakness despite elite talent. Defensive depth is improved with the likes of Owen Power, Michael Kesselring, Bowen Byram, and Rasmus Dahlin. It could be a top 10 unit if Ruff's system clicks. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen regressed last season. This means either Devin Levi or Alex Lyon need to step up. If Buffalo misses the playoffs again, the Sabres could start a fire sale. Alex Tuch is on the last year of his contract and has yet to sign an extension. He could be flipped at the deadline. Josh Norris should be the team's #1 center. However, with his injury history, Ruff must resist overusing him defensively to preserve his offensive impact. Buffalo has a ton of emerging young talent on the team, such as Yuri Kulich, Zach Benson, Jack Quinn, Josh Doan, and Devin Levi. Their development will determine how well the Sabres perform this season. The Sabres are betting on internal growth rather than external upgrades, a risky yet potentially rewarding strategy. Buffalo's season is less about stats and more about soul. If they finally break through, it'll be a triumph of resilience and internal belief. If not, the franchise may face its most painful reckoning yet. Questions for the 25-26 season. 1. Can they break their playoff drought? Buffalo's 14-season playoff drought is the longest in NHL history. This year is not just a goal, it's a mandate. Players, coaches, and front office staff know that anything short of a postseason berth could trigger major changes. 2. Rasmus Dahlin under a microscope. Rasmus Dahlin enters the season as the captain and cornerstone of the franchise, but also with his leadership, usage, and emotional resilience under scrutiny all year. He signed through 2032 at $11 million per season and has a full no-move clause. If Buffalo misses the playoffs again, insiders suggest he may be willing to waive it to join a contender. 3. Will Devon Levi take over in net? Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen regressed badly last season, posting a .887 save percentage, ranking 102nd out of 103 goalies in goals saved above average. Devon Levi dominated in the AHL and has signed a contract extension. If Luukkonen falters early, expect Levi to be promoted. 4. Will they trade Bowen Byram and Alex Tuch? Two key players who could be on the move if Buffalo stumbles are Bowen Byram and Alex Tuch. Bowen Byram signed a short-term deal but remains the odd man out on a stacked left side defense. Alex Tuch is a fan favorite and a top 6 forward, but is a pending UFA with no contract extension. My prediction is that the Buffalo Sabres finish 8th in Atlantic. And now a word from our sponsor. Check out my scouting blog at hockeywiz777scouting.com. Listen to my scouting blog podcast on podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/hockeywiz777scouting. The 2025-26 Detroit Red Wings season marks a centennial campaign steeped in urgency and cautious optimism. After 9 straight years without playoff hockey, GM Steve Yzerman has built a roster that is no longer rebuilding, but recalibrating. Detroit hasn't made the postseason since 2016, and the pressure is mounting, especially with Little Caesars Arena still waiting for its first playoff game. Todd McClellan enters his first full season behind the bench after replacing Derek Lalonde midseason. His structured, possession-heavy system began to take hold late last year. The Red Wings have a very stable and solid core, with Captain Dylan Larkin as the emotional and offensive play driver. He is joined by breakout star winger Lucas Raymond and perennial 30-goal scorer Alex DeBrincat. On defense, the Red Wings are anchored by Moritz Seider, who is evolving as one of the premier shutdown defensemen in the league. Simon Edvinsson is a rising young defenseman for Detroit and will be a core part of the team for a long time. Outside of Seider and Edvinsson, Detroit lacks depth on the blue line unless top prospect Alex Sandin-Pellikka is able to crack the roster. Detroit made minimal changes up front, but they did make 2 key moves, trading Vladimir Tarasenko to Minnesota in a salary dump and acquiring veteran goalie John Gibson from Anaheim to finally stabilize the crease. Gibson is expected to start 50-plus games, so his health and consistency are crucial. Detroit's success really depends on the development of two young players, Marco Kasper and Albert Johansson. Kasper is a breakout candidate after a 17-goal rookie campaign and is expected to center the second line alongside DeBrincat and Kane. Albert Johansson emerged as a borderline top 4 defenseman last season. If he continues to thrive as a defensive specialist, he could earn more minutes. This season is Detroit's pivot point from rebuilding to relevance. If the young core matures and the goaltending holds, the Wings could finally bring playoff hockey back to Hockeytown. Questions for the 25-26 season. 1. 100 years of Red Wings hockey where legacy meets expectation. This is Detroit's centennial season, marking 100 years since the franchise's founding in 1926. That milestone casts a long shadow. Fans expect playoff hockey at Little Caesars Arena for the first time. The team's branding, media coverage, and in-game presentations will lean heavily into nostalgia and legacy. 2. Will the John Gibson gamble pay off? Detroit's biggest offseason move was acquiring John Gibson from Anaheim. He's expected to start 50-plus games and stabilize the crease, which has been the weakness in recent years. If he falters, Detroit's playoff hopes collapse. If he thrives, though, they could sneak in. 3. Will Marco Kasper be ready to be the second-line center? Kasper exploded onto the scene after McClellan took over, scoring 30 points in the final 4 months. He is expected to center the second line with DeBrincat and Kane, and is expected to be a two-way force. Can he avoid a sophomore slump and continue his two-way dominance? 4. How will McClellan's system affect team performance? McClellan now has a full training camp and roster control. His system emphasizes possession, defensive accountability, and gap control. Players such as Marco Kasper and Albert Johansson thrived under his system late last season. Can he unlock the team's possession game and improve a historically weak PK? My prediction is that the Detroit Red Wings finish 5th in the Atlantic. The 25-26 Florida Panthers are chasing immortality. Fresh off back-to-back Stanley Cup championships, they're not just defending a title, they're hunting a three-peat, a feat not seen since the New York Islanders dynasty of the early 1980s. Florida defeated Edmonton in consecutive finals, cementing their status as the NHL's most dominant team of the decade. Florida has their core locked in, with Barkov, Tkachuk, Reinhart, Bennett, Ekblad, Forsling, and Marchand all signed through at least 2030. The Olympic year will be a huge challenge though, with a compressed schedule and the 2026 Winter Olympics adding fatigue and injury risk. The depth will definitely be tested, especially with Matthew Tkachuk expected to miss extended time. Tkachuk underwent surgery for a torn adductor and sports hernia. He is expected to be back in January, possibly in time for the Olympics. On the bright side, his absence frees up $9.5 million in LTIR cap space, allowing Florida to stay compliant despite being $4.5 million over the cap. Until his return, expect players such as Maki Samoskevich and Anton Lundell to see elevated roles. Head coach Paul Maurice has built a 4-line, 3-pairing juggernaut that thrives on depth, structure, and resilience. The power play remains lethal with Barkov, Reinhart, and Tkachuk once healthy. The PK is anchored by Sam Bennett and Anton Lundell. Sergei Bobrovsky should be the full-time starter, with Daniil Tarasov being the newly signed backup. The concern though is Bobrovsky's age and whether or not he can handle 50-plus games of regular season workload plus playoffs. The best case scenario is that Tkachuk returns mid-season, the depth holds up, and the Panthers three-peat. The worst case scenario and most likely scenario is that the fatigue finally sets in, the injuries mount, and the Panthers fall short. This season is not just about winning, it's about legacy. If Florida is able to three-peat, they'll join the pantheon of NHL dynasties. If they fall short, there is no shame in it, but it means the cracks of wear and tear are finally starting to show. Questions for the 25-26 season. 1. Can the Panthers three-peat and become a dynasty, or will they fall short? Florida has played a league record 314 games over 4 seasons, including 3 deep playoff runs. The question isn't just can they win again, it's do they have anything left? With the compressed schedule and Olympics, this will really test their endurance. Depth and load management will be to surviving the grind. 2. Matthew Tkachuk's health. Matthew Tkachuk gutted through the 25 playoffs with a torn adductor and sports hernia. He underwent surgery for the injury and is expected to be back in January, possibly in time for Olympics. If he returns mid-season, he could be the spark that reignites Florida's offense. His health could very well define the team's ceiling. 3. Anton Lundell's breakout campaign. Lundell quietly posted a career-high 45 points last season while playing on the third line. With Tkachuk sidelined, he may earn more minutes. If he breaks the 20-goal mark, he could very well become Florida's next star center. 4. Cap maneuvering and Olympic implications. With Tkachuk on long-term IR, Florida gains $9.5 million in cap relief, allowing them to stay cap compliant despite being $4.5 million over the cap. The 2026 Winter Olympics will sideline the NHL for 20 days in February. At least 4 Panthers are expected to represent their countries, including Barkov, Reinhart, and Tkachuk. Our prediction is that the Florida Panthers finish first in Atlantic. The Montreal Canadiens finished the 2024-25 season with a 40-30-11 record and clinched a wild card spot. However, they ultimately fell to the Washington Capitals in the first round. Still, they went 15-5-6 down the stretch, a sign of maturity and resilience. The 2025-26 Montreal Canadiens are full of hype, and it could be a turning point where youthful promise meets rising expectations. After clawing their way back into the playoffs last year, the Habs are no longer rebuilding. With a dynamic young core and a revamped blue line, the fan base is hungry for relevance. This season could mark the beginning of something special. Coach Martin St. Louis has crafted a high-tempo, creativity-first system that suits the likes of Suzuki, Demidov, Slavkovsky, Caulfield, and Hudson. Montreal was busy this offseason, acquiring defenseman Noah Dobson from the Islanders and then promptly signing him to an 8-year deal with $76 million. Montreal also added forward Zachary Bolduc to deepen their forward group. Montreal is still trying to offload Harry Price's $10.5 million AAV to gain deadline flexibility. The power play is expected to improve with Dobson quarterbacking and with Demidov's arrival. The goaltending is still a concern though. Sam Montembeault is the starter, but his durability and consistency are concerns. Montreal has some young prospects to keep an eye on, including Oliver Kapanen, Joshua Waugh, Owen Beck, and Jacob Dobes. All have potential to make an impact this year, especially if they find a way to move on from players such as Josh Anderson. Mike Matheson has been a player who has surfaced on the trade block, and he will likely get moved due to the fact he's on an expiring contract and they have David Reinbacher in the system to replace him. This season is Montreal's pivot from promise to proof. If the young core clicks and the veterans deliver, the Canadiens could be one of the NHL's most exciting teams, both on and off the ice. Even though Montreal is a team that has playoff aspirations, their goaltending is suspect and their team is relatively young. This does them no favors in a loaded Atlantic division that has the likes of the reigning champion Panthers, Toronto Maple Leafs, Tampa Bay Lightning, rising Ottawa Senators, and Detroit Red Wings. Questions for the 25-26 season. 1. Demidov's impact. Ivan Demidov, the electrifying Russian winger, is expected to start the season on the line with Kirby Dach and Patrik Laine. His elite KHL pedigree and offensive instincts could make him a Calder favorite and franchise cornerstone. Demidov is Montreal's most exciting prospect since Cole Caulfield, but can he handle the pressure of playing in hockey's most scrutinized market? 2. Lane Hudson versus Noah Dobson. Noah Dobson was acquired from the Islanders and signed an 8-year deal worth $76 million. His range and puck-moving ability are a perfect fit with Montreal's high up-tempo system. Dobson's arrival gives the Canadiens another power play quarterback, but the question is, will they play him alongside Hudson or on a separate unit? After winning the Calder Trophy with 66 points, Hudson was controversially snubbed from Team USA's Olympic camp. His pairing with Noah Dobson could be one of the NHL's most dynamic duos. 3. Goaltending consistency. Sam Montembeault is the starter for now, but Jacob Dobes emerged as a trusted backup last season, posting a .909 save percentage and allowed Montreal to rest Montembeault more strategically. If Montembeault regresses, Dobes could take over. However, neither has proven to be a truly reliable starter. 4. Patrick Laine's fit. After a rocky debut, he is finally healthy and motivated to prove he's still a 40-goal threat. He's in the final year of his deal and will likely be playing alongside Demidov and Dach. This gives him elite line mates. This could be his final chance to prove that he is a top 6 forward. My prediction is that the Montreal Canadiens finish 6th in the Atlantic Division. Check out my hockey blog at hockeywiztalkshockey.blogspot.com. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at hockeywiz777. The Ottawa Senators finished the 24-25 season with a 45-30-7 record and clinched a wildcard spot. They even pushed the Toronto Maple Leafs to 6 games in the first round after being down 3-0. It was a moral victory, but now the bar is higher than ever. The 25-26 Ottawa Senators are entering this season with very high expectations. After snapping an 8-year playoff drought last spring, the Senators are no longer just chasing relevance. They are trying to be a legit playoff team. With a fortified roster, a maturing core, and a fan base hungry for success, this season could mark Ottawa's return to sustained contention. GM Steve Staios and coach Travis Green have emphasized defensive structure, depth, and internal growth. The team allowed 47 fewer goals than the previous season. Travis Green's system emphasized gap control, puck retrieval, and transitional play. Ottawa's goals against dropped significantly last year, due in large part to the acquisition of Linus Ullmark and the arrival of Jake Sanderson. Ottawa has one of the best young cores in the league, which includes Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, Jake Sanderson, Drake Batherson, and Dylan Cousins. With this amount of talent on the team, the Sens' power play has the potential to be a top 10 unit. Alongside a brilliant young core, there are a good crop of role players, including Shane Pinto, Ridley Gregg, Claude Giroux, and Fabian Zetterlund. Although Jake Sanderson gets the majority of the attention, defensemen such as Thomas Chabot, Artem Zub, and Nick Jensen are reliable minute-munching defensemen. Carter Yakimchuk, the WHL standout, could crack the top 6 on defense and energize the fan base as well. Ottawa didn't do much in the offseason, but they did add defenseman Jordan Spence and center Lars Eller to bolster their depth. Linus Ullmark and Leevi Meriläinen are a terrific goaltending tandem that offers stability and upside. Ullmark is a stable veteran in net and will be key for a playoff push, while Meriläinen could very well be Ottawa's goaltender of the future. This season is Ottawa's pivot from promise to proof. Ottawa looks to be one of the NHL's most balanced and dangerous teams. Questions for the 25-26 season. 1. Can Dylan Cousins live up to expectations? Ottawa swapped Josh Norris for Dylan Cousins in a bold deadline move last year. Cousins responded with 16 points in 21 games post-trade. Norris, meanwhile, continued to battle injuries in Buffalo. If Cousins can top 60 points and becomes a fixture on the power play, this trade would be a franchise win. 2. Can Tim Stützle take a superstar leap? Tim Stützle posted 79 points last season, but the buzz is about whether or not he can crack the elusive 100-point club. Only 6 players last year hit that mark, and Ottawa's offense needs him to be one of them. He is now the undisputed top-line center. A projected trio of Stützle, Tkachuk, and Zetterlund could rival Toronto's top-line production, especially with Marner gone. 3. Goalie controversy. Linus Ullmark anchors the crease, but Leevi Meriläinen is a rising star. Meriläinen posted a .925 save percentage in limited NHL action last year. If Ullmark falters or gets injured, Meriläinen could take over the job and never give it back. 4. How will the Sens perform under Travis Green in year 2? Under Green, Ottawa allowed 47 fewer goals last year. His system emphasized puck retrieval, gap control, and transition play. With a deeper blue line and more buy-in, Ottawa could quietly be one of the stingiest teams in the East. My prediction is that the Ottawa Senators finish 3rd in the Atlantic. The 2025-26 Tampa Bay Lightning is on a high-octane campaign fueled by revenge, legacy, and offensive firepower. After being eliminated by the Florida Panthers in the first round for the 3rd straight year, the Bolts are done playing second fiddle in the Sunshine State. This season is about reclaiming dominance and proving their core still has championship DNA. GM Julien Brisebois kept the roster mostly intact, banking on chemistry and continuity. Head coach John Cooper remains confident in his group, with several of their core players remaining from their championship teams. His system emphasizes puck possession, layered forechecking, and elite transition play. Tampa's identity is built on speed, structure, and playoff poise. The Battle of Florida rivalry has reached its boiling point as the Panthers eliminated Tampa in 5 games in each of the past 2 seasons. Every matchup this season will be a measuring stick and possibly a playoff preview. Tampa's core remains intact, returning its top 11 scorers, including Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point, Jake Gunsel, and Brandon Hagel. Tampa led the league in goals for with 3.56 goals per game last season. Key additions from last year's trade deadline, Oliver Borkstrand and Yanni Gourde, will be joining full-time after being acquired mid-season. Victor Hedman and JJ Moser are set to anchor the top pair. Moser had a career best plus 20 rating and elite zone denial. Ryan McDonough and Eric Cernak remain as their second pair and round out a veteran-heavy blue line. Andrei Vasilevsky remains the starter. Tampa's success is heavily dependent on him staying healthy. Tampa's depth is the biggest difference this season, with the likes of Nick Paul, Pontus Holmberg, Gage Goncalves, and Connor Geekie potentially playing a huge role in the secondary scoring. This season is all about legacy, revenge, and proving the window has not closed. Tampa looks to be a playoff team, but unlikely to be a top 3 seed. Questions for the 25-26 season. Can Tampa be a top 3 seed? Analysts predict that Tampa will make the playoffs as a wild card and not a top 3 seed in the Atlantic. This is not because they have regressed, but because Ottawa is on the rise and teams like Florida and Toronto remain dominant. 2. Can Brandon Hagel hit 100 points? Hagel hit 90 points last season and is projected to crack triple digits. If he does, he will join an elite Lightning club that features 3 other members, Kucherov, Stamkos, and St. Louis. 3. Connor Geekie's emergence. Connor Geekie is Tampa's top prospect and could crack the top 9 this year. If he sticks, he will add youth and versatility to an aging forward group. 4. Borkstrand and Moser's future. Both are UFAs after the season and could be subject to trade bait if Tampa needs cap relief. JJ Moser, despite strong play, is an RFA next season and may be dealt if Tampa needs cap flexibility. My prediction is that the Tampa Bay Lightning finish 4th in the Atlantic. The 25-26 Toronto Maple Leafs are undergoing a seismic shift. After losing in the second round of the playoffs at the hands of the Florida Panthers, the Leafs finally broke up their long-standing core. This season is about forging a new identity and proving that the window has not closed. It's just been reframed. Mitch Marner was dealt to Vegas in a July 1st sign-in trade for Nick Waugh, ending a 9-season run and breaking up the Matthews, Marner, Nylander, and Riley quartet. Brendan Shanahan is out after 11 seasons, giving GM Red Trevelyan and coach Craig Berube full control. Known for his defensive-first, playoff-hardened approach, Berube is tasked with reshaping Toronto's DNA from finesse to grit. Offense is more spread out, less reliant on top-line magic, but still expected to have a dominant top line with Matthews, Nyes, and Nylander as the top trio, and with Tavares anchoring a heavier second line. Morgan Rielly is the heartbeat of the defense. Despite a decline in offensive production, he is still a reliable shutdown defenseman. Chris Tanev, Brandon Carlo, and Jake McCabe round out their top 4, with Oliver Ekman-Larsson playing a prominent role on the second power play unit. Berube's system emphasizes gap control, board battles, and playoff structure. Their goaltending tandem of Anthony Stolarz and Joseph Woll form a reliable 1A, 1B tandem. New faces that could make an impact on the team include Matthias Maccelli, who was acquired from Utah after a down year, Dakota Joshua, a power forward who brings grit and net front presence, and Nick Waugh, who came over in a deal for Mitch Marner. Look out for Easton Cowan, who could very well be the X factor of this season. He was the Leafs' first round pick in 2023 and could push for a roster spot out of training camp. This season is Toronto's pivot from star-driven spectacle to system-driven substance. If the new identity holds, the Leafs could finally rewrite their postseason narrative. Questions for the 25-26 season. 1. Can the depth replace the star power left vacant by Mitch Marner? Marner's sign-in trade to Vegas left a 102-point hole in Toronto's lineup. Instead of chasing a 1-for-1 replacement, Toronto opted for a 3-for-1 strategy. Can Michelli, Joshua, and Waugh collectively replace Marner's 102-point production? The goal is to spread the wealth, not to replicate it. 2. Craig Berube's culture shift. From flash to grit, Craig Berube's gonna be in full control of the Leafs this year. His system emphasizes structure, forechecking, and playoff-style hockey. Players such as Matthew Knies and Easton Cowan are expected to thrive under his high-compete ethos. Will Toronto finally be a team built for May? 3. How effective will their goaltending tandem be? Last season, Anthony Stolarz and Joseph Woll formed one of the NHL's best tandems. Stolarz even finished 5th in Vezina voting. If they can replicate their form, Toronto could rank top 5 in team save percentage again. 4. Easton Cowan's rise. The 2023 first-round pick is pushing for a roster spot. His energy and versatility could be a surprise X-factor in the lineup. If he sticks, he could be a fan favorite and spark the bottom 6. His speed, tenacity, and versatility makes him a Berube favorite. My prediction is that the Toronto Maple Leafs finish 2nd in Atlantic. Listen to Hockey Wiz Talks podcast on Podbean and Spotify. Check out my travel channel at youtube.com/HockeyWizTravels. The Atlantic Division is the hardest division in the league to predict because there are many teams that have the potential to be a top-tier team. But potential and hype versus actual performance is a thing that you have to evaluate when making predictions on this division. With that said, this division is highly unpredictable. In my next podcast, I'll be talking about rookies to watch for this season.